Moscow's Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
In this hour-long phone call on Saturday, Trump asked Georgia's Secretary of State point blank to fudge the numbers, to flip the state's 2020 result to give Trump a victory. Here's that specific piece of audio, which was first obtained by the Washington Post.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more that we have, because we won the state. So tell me, Brad, what are we going to do? We won the election, and it's not fair to take it away from us like this. And it's going to be very costly in many ways.
CNN has now obtained the entire phone call, and we want to give you as much context as possible so you can hear for yourselves what the president was trying to accomplish in this phone call. So I'm going to play for you now a 7-minute excerpt from this phone call. You'll hear the president appear to issue a threat if the count is not changed. And Georgia's Secretary of State, a Republican, Brad Raffensperger, pushes back.
We have many, many times the number of votes necessary to win the state, and we won the state. Now we won it very substantially and easily, and we have much of this is they're certified. Far more is certified than we need, but we're getting additional numbers certified too, and we're getting pictures of drop boxes being delivered and delivered late and delivered 3 days later in some cases. Plus, we have many affidavits to that effect.
So, Mr. President, if I might be able to jump in, and I'll give Brad a chance, Mr. Secretary. Obviously there are allegations where we believe that not every vote or fair vote and legal vote was counted, and that's at odds with the representation from the Secretary of State's office. What I'm hopeful for is there some way that we can find some kind of an agreement to look at this a little bit more fully. The president mentioned Fulton County, but in some of these areas where there seems to be a difference of where the facts seem to lead. And so, Mr. Secretary, I was hopeful that, in a spirit of cooperation and compromises, there's something that we can at least have a discussion to look at some of these allegations to find a path forward that's less litigious.
Well, I've listened to what the president has just said. President Trump, we've had several lawsuits, and we've had to respond in court to the lawsuits and the contentions. We don't agree that you have one. I didn't agree about the 200,000 number that you mentioned. And I could go through that point by point. What we had done is we gave our state senate about 1.5 hours of our time going through the election issue by issue. And then on the state house, the government affairs committee, we gave them about 2.5 hours of our time going back point by point on all the issues of contention. And then just a few days ago, we met with our U.S. congressman, Republican congressman, and we gave them about 2 hours of our time talking about this past election. Going back, primarily what you've talked about here, focused in on primarily, I believe, is the absentee ballot process. I don't believe that you're really questioning the Dominion machines, because we did a hand retally, a 100% retally of all the ballots, and compared that to what the machine said, and it came up with virtually the same result. Then we did the recount, and we got virtually the same result. So I guess we could probably take that off the table. I don't think there's an issue about that. I think what you were...
Well, Brad, not that there's not an issue, but because we have a big issue with Dominion and other states, and perhaps in yours, but we haven't felt we needed to go there. And just to, maybe put a little different spin on what Mark is saying, Mark Meadows, we'd like to go further, but we don't really need to. We have all the votes we need. We won the state. If you took, these are the most minimal numbers, the numbers that I gave you. Those are numbers that are certified, your absentee ballots sent to vacant addresses, your out-of-state voters, 4,925. When you add them up, it's many times the 11,779 number. So we could go through. We have not gone through your Dominion, so we can't give them blessing. I mean, in other states, we think we found tremendous corruption with Dominion machines, but we'll have to see. But we only lost the state by by that number, 11,000 votes, and 779. So, with that being said, with just what we have, and with just what we have, we're giving you minimal numbers. We're doing the most conservative numbers possible. We're many times above the margin, and so we don't really have to, Mark. I don't think we have to go through machines because what's the difference between winning the election by two votes and winning it by 500,000 votes? I think we probably did win it by 500,000. One of the things that happened, Brad, is we have other people coming in now from Alabama and from South Carolina and from other states, and they're saying it's impossible for you to have lost Georgia. We won, in Alabama we set a record, got the highest vote ever. In Georgia we set a record with a massive amount of votes, and they say it's not possible to have lost Georgia. And I could tell you by our rallies. I could tell you by the rally I'm having on Monday night. The place, they already have lines of people standing out front waiting. It's just not possible to have lost Georgia. It's not possible. When I heard it was close, I said, there's no way. But they dropped a lot of votes in there late at night. You know that, Brad. And that's what we are working on very, very stringently. But regardless of those votes, with all of it being said, we lost by essentially 11,000 votes, and we have many more votes already calculated and certified too. So I just don't know, Mark, I don't know what's the purpose. I won't give Dominion a pass because we found too many bad things, but we don't need Dominion or anything else. We have won this election in Georgia based on all of this, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, Brad. Having a correct. The people of Georgia are angry, and these numbers are going to be repeated on Monday night, along with others that we're going to have by that time, which are much more substantial even. And the people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. That you've recalculated, because the 2,236 and absentee ballots, they're all exact numbers that were done by accounting firms, law firms, etc. And even if you cut them in half, and cut them in half again, it's more votes than we need.
Let's be clear here. There is nothing there. The president is spouting conspiracy theories. He's spouting lies. You heard the Secretary of State push back at times, but the bottom line is that state conducted at least 3 recounts. They've done a signature audit, one of the big counties in Cobb County, which found no voter fraud.
It is Monday, the 4th of January of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays for the, well, yes, it is the first broadcast of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy in 2021 since we took the first off, and I wish I hadn't now because so much news, even more news has happened from that time onward. Well, Trump making another one of those perfect calls. That sounded pretty perfect there at the top, didn't it? Wow. He's of a belief that really is unbelievable. I like how he goes after the Dominion machines, but not the ES&S machines that have already been proven in Republican states to have been used surreptitiously to, manipulate votes in the Republicans' favor. Whereas, what's weird about the Dominion machines, they have a paper trail, so you can tell if anything's been manipulated. But in the QAnon mind of this president of the United States, that doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. None of the facts matter. In fact, the facts are fake. I had a round and round discussion with a fellow on the Facebook community pages here in Southern Oregon who really wants to deny the pandemic and by extension that Trump lost the election. He denies that, and there's a lot of them too, and they're very angry. But even though our deaths are spiking, our infections are spiking, according to this fellow, it's all fake. That nobody has died from COVID. They died from something else, like heart disease or cancer, but they're blaming it on COVID. How does one really discuss with people like that? When, at best, they're useful idiots just pushing the propaganda unknowingly, or they're dupes, which means they kind of know what's going on, or they're assets and they're getting paid. I think there's a lot of idiots and dupes, and they're all very useful, and they're all in denial, and now we have to put up with it. We have to make nice with these people. How is that possible? When they throw the F words around, but as soon as you throw an F word back, you're the one who's being a bully. Bullies always do that. Anybody who stands up to the bully will be accused of being a bully by the bully. So, and it gets even better. Whereas I refuse to use a nom de plume. I refuse to use a fake account on any social media site. That is me. Out there, I don't change my name. Yeah, Justice is my real name, albeit my middle name, but it's what I've been going by predominantly since I was 19. So anybody can find out what they want about me. It's easy. I encourage it because the reason I've never wanted to change my name is that I wanted to honor my father and my family. I thought, oh, wow, this poet Putnam's pretty interesting. I hear his dad's a historian. Oh, Jackson Putnam. Let's go look him up. So that was the reason that I decided not to make up a fake name when I was playing music, punk, which you took on a name and a persona. I already had one, Justice. I mean, it's already pretentious in its own right. Well, I was born with it. Don't have to adopt any pretension. I got it all right here. So this other fellow, though, acknowledged that, well, yeah, he's been locked out of Facebook. I wonder why. And he's smarter than me because he's using a fake name, which is a violation of terms of use by Facebook. I pointed that out. I don't know if he's been suspended because I'm not going to report the guy. Let somebody else do it. But I don't know if he's laying low or maybe he's going to make another sock puppet account. That's how they work. They spread the lies. They are not held to account. And yet we are the ones that are incapable of governing properly because we're morally bankrupt. We being liberals, Democratic Party members, voters, black, brown, Asian, whatever it is, infirmed, gay, lesbian, transsexual, it doesn't matter. You know, when the Republicans during impeachment said, you know, it's like really too close to the election to take this guy out of office. We should leave that up to the people. And when the people decided by 7, almost 8 million more votes, now the GOP is out there saying, yeah, but we didn't mean those people voting, meaning, you know who those people are. Who they're trying to keep from voting in Georgia right now. Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, there's going to be probably one polling place to vote in all of Georgia. And then they're going to cap the hours, you know, and because there's a lot. What? Last count, 4 million more people have voted already than in the general? I think people consider it to be damn important. It's going to be hard to throw away all those votes. Now, I got to tell you, the Secretary of State of Georgia is no hero. Yeah, he's standing up to Trump. But he is part of the Southern Good Old Boy Network. All right? Let's not forget that. This guy's been knee-deep, neck-deep, into his own voter suppression efforts over the years. He's not a hero. He's standing up to Trump. Because I guess even to the good old boy networks of races, Trump's gone a little bit too far for even them. And Trump is finding out what it's like to come up against that old boy network in the South. And they look upon him probably as some, I don't know, Manhattan socialite with manicured nails. They wouldn't be incorrect in that by any means. But that tape, I just love. Now, you can tell a mobster is a mobster and a whole party are mobsters when the first thing that come out is they start complaining that there was a tape, that there's some sort of violation of a code or a law somewhere because the President of the United States was taped committing a crime. I heard that Trump's going to try to sue Raffensperger under the Espionage Act. Really? You're committing a crime? And you're going to use the Espionage Act to go after the guy who exposed your crime? John Dean thinks that Trump was the one who was recording it. By just the audio quality, Trump's voice sounded more live and less static. Everybody was on a speakerphone. You could tell. Now, I'm not so sure about that, but regardless, recording these phone calls are not unusual, especially with Trump. I mean, his own lawyers have to have at least 2 or 3 lawyers come in because the guy lies all the time, his own lawyers. They tape everything because they got to hold him to account because they'll come back the next day and he'll just lie to their faces and say, I didn't say that. And they'll go, well, this is what you said. Yeah, no wonder he accused Obama of taping him. Everybody does. He just figured, oh, wow, a black guy taped me. That's wrong. And now Trump considers Raffensperger a turncoat. Well, yeah, I guess so. Look. The good old boy mob and whatever mobster entity that Trump has decided to be, because I don't know if he's just a Russian mobster. Well, and that's only part of the news. That's only part of it. There was so much news that we had to curate it down and have some, maybe off the beaten path news stories. Did you know that even, we're going to start off the news read in the Bistro Cafe with a story about the Nashville suicide bomber. Wow, that's kind of fallen off the radar. Sort of like he was under the radar of all the cops. And I keep telling, stop looking under the radar. I mean, you got to get a little bit lower. How about actual police reports? Yeah, it's very interesting about that, isn't it? That whole case. The suicide bomber's girlfriend called up the cops almost a year before. This guy's making bombs and he's like espousing some crazy ass shit. And so what did the cops do? They took her in for a psych exam. Kind of something wrong with that lady. God, a guy's just making a bomb? What's wrong with that? Yeah. So you gotta wonder. Went under their radar. I don't even think they had their radar on. He was a friendly. You don't need to track that. And I don't know. Is there some sort of like professional courtesy to bomb makers and cops when a girlfriend is involved? Oh, yeah, a crazy girlfriend. And here's a guy who believes in lizard people. Uh-huh. Well, he might not be far off on that either. Because we might all be lizard people from another planet. Have you ever thought about that? Not just some, all of us are. Come on, okay. Why don't we just go ahead and give you what's on the rest of the menu, starting off here in the Bistro Cafe on River City Hash Mondays. The Nashville suicide bomber sent materials, which espoused his viewpoints to several acquaintances throughout the country. And the FBI and others are saying, hey, if you got a box from this guy, let us know. Yeah, I'd be kind of concerned about opening that box. Maybe you're not considered to be a friend. California funeral homes have run out of space as the pandemic rages on, but all those deaths are just fake. Those bodies aren't real, according to the pandemic maggot denier, or the maggot pandemic deniers. Let's get that correct. And U.S. cities left behind in virus aid look for a lifeline in the Biden era. And that will only happen if McConnell isn't in the Senate, because he's going to block every bit of aid to anybody in America because he wants democracy to die, along with the rest of us, apparently. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the Pope accepted the resignation of the Belarus archbishop, who spent time in exile after angering Lukashenko. You don't anger Lukashenko because then you have to go in exile, even when you're the Archbishop of Belarus. And several hundred police shut down raves defying COVID-19 curbs in France and Spain. The stupidity and the idiocy is not confined to just maggots now, is it? All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, off to the right of the page is the chat room link. Now, the chat room is there so you can chat, and Kelly Lincoln monitors it. If you got any concerns, that's probably a good place to start and go from there then. But please do. And if you would also look to the leftish of the page near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. There is the link to our Patreon site, and as I've mentioned before, all these many years, your generosity helps us pay our bills and fly under the radar in our own way so that we can continue Resistance Radio, because it looks like we're going to have to resist the continuing resonance of this fascist takeover that we will not allow to happen. It's just not going to happen. And we have to thank you for helping us fund our effort If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink in these times of continuing peril and send those funds our way, we stretch those dollars really beyond compare. No one can compare to it. And then, like I said, we pay those bills. And we get the machinery that we need and the attendant software that's also needed to continue this effort of resistance. So thank you for your generosity once again. We will be going on almost 10 years now, and just, not very long, a month or so ago, the official 10-year anniversary of Netroots Radio will be happening. And then the live 24/7, 365 was shortly after that. But the ascendance of Netroots Radio happened 10 years ago. And we have a purpose. And our purpose is to, afflict the comfortable and help the ones that need to be helped. And also, above all, elect more and better Democrats so that we can form a better and more perfect union. There you go. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. I, of course, take care of me, and you can find me at Justice Putnam on Twitter. Go ahead, follow me there because I post the show notes and links diary there from Daily Co's first, and then I post it up on other social media platforms. So, follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And most importantly, please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts can be found, mixed in with all the rest of us. Okay, we're not Sarah Kandazor, okay? Maybe we're Jonathan Winters. I hope not. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, is by way of the anonymous Reuters staff who continue to work like worker bees even in 2021. The federal investigation into the bombing in Nashville on Christmas Day has uncovered evidence suggesting the suspected bomber believed in aliens and lizard people, according to a senior law enforcement source. Federal, state, and local law enforcement officers have been trying to figure out why the 63-year-old suspect, Anthony Q. Warner, who died by suicide in the explosion, detonated the bomb while inside his motorhome on December 25th in downtown Nashville, Tennessee's largest city. News Channel 5, which is in Nashville, reported on Saturday that a man who knew Warner received a package on New Year's Day, postmarked 2 days before the blast, containing at least 9 typed pages and 2 thumb drives. The man turned it over to the FBI. While the package did not have a return address, the contents of the letter referenced various conspiracy theories, including that aliens have launched attacks on Earth, which indicated it was likely from Warner, News Channel 5 said. Warner's writings also indicate he believed reptilians and lizard people controlled the Earth and had altered human DNA. Maybe we altered the lizard DNA and it made us. Come on. We're aware the suspect sent materials which espoused his viewpoints to several acquaintances throughout the country, FBI Special Agent Jason Pack said in a statement, calling on anyone who had received such packages to contact the FBI. Well, I'd contact a bomb squad first. The bombing took place in the early morning when there was little activity in the city, for those of you who don't know. And an automated message emanating from the vehicle warning of a bomb allowed the police to evacuate people. Oh, he was such a considerate suicide bomber, wasn't he? More than 40 businesses were damaged in the explosion. Warner is the only known death. In addition to the warning, the audio on Warner's recreational vehicle played a recording of Petula Clark's 1964 hit Downtown before the blast. And none of them can figure out why that's there. Well, it's obvious. He was downtown. That's where all the lizard people shop. Christopher Weber of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. As communities across the country feel the pain of a surge in coronavirus cases, funeral homes in the hotspot of Southern California say they must turn away grieving families as they run out of space for the bodies piling up. The head of the State Funeral Directors Association says mortuaries are being inundated as the U.S. nears a grim tally of 350,000 COVID-19 deaths. More than 20 million people in the country have been infected, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. I have been in the funeral industry for 40 years, and never in my life did I think that this could happen, that I'd have to tell a family, no, we cannot take your family member, said Magda Maldonado, owner of the Continental Funeral Home in Los Angeles. Continental is averaging about 30 body removals a day, 6 times its normal rate. Mortuary owners are calling one another to see whether anyone can handle the overflow, and the answer is always the same. They are full too. In order to keep up with the flood of bodies, Maldonado has rented extra 50-foot refrigerators for 2 of the 4 facilities she runs in L.A. and surrounding counties. Continental has also been delaying pickups at hospitals for a day or 2 while they deal with residential clients. Bob Ackerman, executive director of the California Funeral Directors Association, said the whole process of burying and cremating bodies has slowed down, including embalming bodies and obtaining death certificates. During normal times, cremation might happen within a day or 2. Now, it takes a week or longer. Ackerman said that in the southern part of the state, every funeral home I talk to says we're paddling as fast as we can. Los Angeles County, the epicenter of the crisis in California, has surpassed 10,000 COVID-19 deaths alone. Hospitals in the area are overwhelmed and are struggling to keep up with basics such as oxygen as they treat an unprecedented number of patients with respiratory issues. On Saturday, U.S. Army Corps of Engineer crews arrived to update some hospitals' oxygen delivery systems. Nationally, an average of just over 2,500 people have died of COVID-19 over the past 7 days, and that's according to Johns Hopkins data. The number of daily newly reported cases in that period has averaged close to 195,000, a decline from 2 weeks earlier. But it's feared that holiday gatherings could fuel yet another rise in cases. Richard Cowan and Trevor Honeycutt of Reuters bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. In Washington's months-long political slugfest over who should get aid to counter the financial damage from the COVID-19 pandemic, there was at least one clear loser: local governments. In the midst of cutbacks in workforce and emergency services and growing poverty, U.S. cities, especially the smaller ones, are hoping the next round of stimulus includes them, and that President-elect Joe Biden advocates for them when he takes office on January 20th. The latest coronavirus bill for $892 billion in aid painstakingly negotiated over months and then begrudgingly signed into law last week by Trump, left a bad taste in some mayors' mouths. In Dayton, Ohio, population 140,000, Mayor Nan Whaley noted that Congress voted to restore the 3-martini lunch corporate tax break and approved money to bail out theaters in the aid bill. But they left the cities out, she said. I have a real problem with that. And she's a Democratic mayor, and she told that to Reuters after Congress passed the bill. Her city will not be able to hire a new class of police and firefighters in 2021 without emergency funding from Washington, she said. Well, it looks like Donald Trump is defunding the police now, isn't he? Under Biden's guidance, a Democratic-crafted bill is likely to seek an infusion of hundreds of billions in cash to help state and local governments compelled by the toll of the pandemic. He has called for a bipartisan effort in January, but that's only going to work if we kick McConnell to the curb. And we better. All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, refueling. There are a lot of nits you can pick in Wonder Woman 1984. The mascara doesn't really fit in the story, but they take us there anyway. The conceptual link that anchors the movie's theme to Diana's spiritual core isn't really a thing. And exactly which Amazon thought that golden suit would work as armor? Was it the one who fled the island and later took a job designing new wave ensembles in Milan? And also, Diana and Steve fly across the world and back. When and how did they refuel that plane? You could go to town. But unless you're a sick person who gets off on feeling superior at someone or something else's expense, why would you? You'd just be missing all the great things that Wonder Woman 1984 has to offer, and there are many. Do we need their mascara? No. But be honest, we want to go back there. And anyway, the whole segment rocks. Here's Steve Trevor, even though the character died 70 years prior. But again, they make him work. And yeah, the golden armor, but it's also kind of fabulous. Look, sequels are hard, and there were a lot of hopes and expectations riding on this one. And under that pressure, Patty Jenkins hooks up the fuel lines and delivers us a colorful and fun fable that pulls us so much into the struggles of the characters that when the fights finally come, we say, oh yeah, there's supposed to be action scenes here. Plus, Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, and of course the returning Gal Gadot all deliver some really warm and fun moments. And I like this whole thing of Wonder Woman movies being about lessons that Diana has to learn to make her more mature and wiser in a world of mostly unquestioned privilege. Look, just remember what I've told you. Not even a melodrama, Wonder Woman 1984 is closer to a fable where it's more important to confront what's inside of you than defeat what's coming at you. And it's also welcome proof that the first film wasn't a fluke, that Wonder Woman movies are 10 times better than any other flick that DC puts out, except for Aquaman. They're only 2 or 3 times better than Aquaman. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. The pandemic has transformed lives and livelihoods, but it's changed the little details too, like the language we use, peppering our everyday speech with scientific terms like social distancing, super spreader, and asymptomatic.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had to become amateur epidemiologists, I suppose, and familiarize ourselves with these terms that normally you would expect just to be in some journal article somewhere.
Ben Zimmer is a linguist and language columnist for the Wall Street Journal. He says a lot of the words that came up fresh to many people in 2020 had existed in scholarly literature for decades.
So, for instance, contact tracing is actually attested from 1910. There's an example from an Australian medical journal talking about school epidemics back in 1910, and they're talking about contact tracing as something that the school nurse would need to do to figure out who had been infected.
And the term quarantine, which derives from a Renaissance-era Italian word meaning a 40-day waiting period for ships arriving from plague-stricken ports, dates back centuries, but it took on new life during the pandemic.
Everybody's talking about quarantining, and then it starts generating all sorts of new forms as well. You know, you can drink your quarantini, you can grow a quaran beard, and on and on and on, as people got creative by taking these words and forming innovative new expressions out of them.
Zimmer also chairs the New Words Committee for the American Dialect Society. At a recent virtual meeting, they voted on the 2020 Word of the Year. Selecting from candidates like doom scrolling or social distancing and unprecedented, the group ultimately chose a different word, which, unlike the others, was newly coined in 2020 and truly defined what turned out to be a terrible year: COVID. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the #2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. When it snows this winter, make sure you clear more than your driveway. Before you hit the road and before you get in the driver's seat, check to be sure that your vehicle's tailpipe is clear of snow. If the tailpipe is blocked, carbon monoxide, an odorless, colorless, and deadly gas produced by your engine can build up quickly inside your vehicle, poisoning anyone inside. To learn more, call 1-800-CDC-INFO. That's 1-800-232-4636.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. Occasional aches and pains are an expected part of life, but for many people, pain is a constant companion. Dr. Chad Helmick is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. He's joining us today to discuss ways to manage chronic pain. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thank you.
Chad, how many people in the U.S. suffer from chronic pain?
In 2016, 50 million adults had chronic pain, which is pain on most or every day in the past 6 months. More interesting, though, is that 20 million people have high-impact chronic pain, which is chronic pain that also limits their work or life activities on most or every day in the past 6 months. This is a problem because chronic pain is associated not only with symptoms, but with anxiety and depression, reduced quality of life, and the risk of opioid problems.
What are the most common causes of chronic pain?
The most common causes generally relate to bones and joints, like low back pain and arthritis, but there are many other causes: headaches, sickle cell disease, fibromyalgia, surgery and injuries, and many, many others.
Is chronic pain more common in any particular group of people?
Yes, it occurs at all ages, but it's more common in older middle-aged adults and in the oldest 85 and older. It's also more common in women, poor people, and those who live in rural areas.
How is chronic pain treated?
Well, the first thing to do is to get a diagnosis, which can help guide treatment. But the thinking about chronic pain now is that it becomes a chronic disease by itself, regardless of the cause, and that can cause significant problems. The real goal in management is to have a manageable level of pain, not to get rid of all pain. There's several steps that can be taken, and these are sometimes difficult to do because of barriers to access. But it makes sense to do the simplest and safest things first. And these are non-drug steps. Things like physical activity. Walking is perfectly good to help reduce pain. Also, self-management education can give you some confidence in managing chronic pain when you're on your own. There's also physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychological therapy, better sleep, which usually means less alcohol, and seeing a chiropractor or getting biofeedback and massage. If that's not enough, non-opioid drugs like Tylenol or Motrin and Advil or naproxen or Aleve can help. If those don't work, then it's time to consider something stronger. Sometimes that's opioids, but there's not great evidence that opioids are good for long-term pain in most people.
Do you have any advice for people suffering from chronic pain?
Well, it's important to work with a variety of providers who are working together to help you. The goal, again, is manageable pain so you can live a productive life. This can include physical therapy, most people can walk, to treat any underlying depression or anxiety, and to avoid further injuries. Finally, the National Pain Strategy is laying out a strategic roadmap to improve pain management system in this country.
Where can listeners get more information about managing chronic pain?
Listeners can go to the NIH website, nih.gov, and type in National Pain Strategy.
Thanks, Chad. I've been talking today with Dr. Chad Helmick about ways to manage chronic pain. If you're experiencing daily pain, talk with your healthcare provider to ensure you have the correct diagnosis and know how to manage your condition. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
This Civil Liberties Minute is the second in a series about the president's pardon power. I'm Bill Newman. According to Harvard Law professor Jack Goldsmith, of the 65 pardons that President Trump had bestowed as of December 23rd, he's given 60 to people who have helped him politically or who have personal ties to him, including family, like Charles Kushner, and political operatives who had lied to the FBI to protect him, like Roger Stone, and his first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and white-collar thieves who had politically supported him, like former California Congressman Duncan Hunter. Worth noting, a president wielding his pardon power near the end of his term is not unprecedented. Bill Clinton issued 175 pardons his last day in office, including one to his half-brother Roger for drug charges and one, to wide criticism, to Mark Rich, a fugitive and financier whose ex-wife had donated a chunk of money to the future Clinton Presidential Library. So, the Constitution's broad power to grant pardons and commutations allows the pardons, but that fact does not necessarily end the story. Because when it comes to pardons, Congress definitely can investigate and perhaps can legislate as well. And some legal scholars argue that if there was a quid pro quo for a pardon, such an action could violate federal criminal law and put the people involved at risk, which means that chapters in the story of Trump's pardons may well remain to be written. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day workers at UAW Local 14 walked out on strike against the Toledo Chevrolet transmission plant. They joined the strike wave against General Motors. The national campaign started in November in Atlanta, Georgia, followed by auto strikes in Kansas City and Cleveland, then intensified in late December with the Great Flint Sit-Down Strike. Local 14 members had experienced General Motors' tricks firsthand during a 1935 strike. When GM couldn't stop unionization efforts at the Toledo plant, they began moving the machinery to non-union facilities in nearby Saginaw, Michigan, and Muncie, Indiana. GM's maneuvers drove Local 14 leaders to fight for a national agreement and help with organizing the national strike wave. Once it began, they were able to effectively shut down their plant. They routinely traveled to Flint during the sit-down to help with strike support and soup kitchen efforts. Many Local 14 members would also help beat back the police assault on sit-down strikers in the coming Battle of Running Bulls at Flint. And as Local 14 members walked out on strike at the Chevy plant that day, the UAW presented its 8 demands to GM. These included national collective bargaining rights, the end to the piecemeal pay system, the 30-hour work week, 6-hour day, time and a half for overtime, a living wage, reinstatement of discharged workers, the establishment of seniority rights, the recognition of the UAW as sole bargaining agent, and shared determination of production speed at all plants. GM finally started to budge a month later. This historic agreement would be signed in late March and set the standard in industries across the country as millions of workers sought to unionize. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin, weather from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 44 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high a bit cooler than what we had over the holiday. I'm only topping out around 48 today. And we're going to be getting about a half-inch more of rain, which we've had a bit of rain over the holiday, but not all holiday. So winds will be out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. We have been under an active wind advisory, though here at the mothership it hasn't hit too hard. And we'll see how that works, though. As I mentioned, we're expecting about a half an inch of rain today. And tonight, lows should be in the mid-30s with winds light and variable. Maybe about a tenth of an inch of rain and about that much more tomorrow. But then starting tomorrow night, we're expecting about 3/4 of an inch. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow morning will give way to cloudy skies in the afternoon with winds light and variable, highs in the upper 40s. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon now stand at 5,884. This is an abbreviated count from over the holidays. We'll get a more accurate count later on today. But deceased have spiked from 68, which was reported on Thursday, to 72 now. And I expect those death counts to be even higher as we get the updated numbers later on in the day. Pollen is rated as none right outside the window in Rogue River proper. Here in Rogue River proper, the air quality index for the region is good at 24 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.7 inches. Visibility is at 2 miles, and relative humidity is at 95%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 40 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 39 degrees and cloudy. Rome is 47 and mostly cloudy. Kyiv is 37 with drizzle and fog. Kabul is 36 with a light rain shower. Hong Kong is 61 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 40 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 68 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 52 degrees and cloudy. And New York, New York is 39 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Philip Pulela and Polina Ivanova of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Pope Francis on Sunday yesterday accepted the resignation of the head of the Catholic Church in Belarus, the Archbishop Tadeusz Kondrasiewicz, who spent time in exile last year after angering President Alexander Lukashenko. The Archbishop turned 75 yesterday, the age at which bishops are required to submit resignation letters to the Pope, which he then decides whether to accept or not. It is highly unusual for the Pope to accept a bishop's resignation precisely on his 75th birthday, and even more so to announce it on a Sunday. The speed with which the resignation was accepted indicated the possibility that a face-saving deal for both sides was found in negotiations between the Vatican and the Belarus government to win the Archbishop's return from exile in December, a diplomatic source in Rome said. Bishops are usually kept in place for months and sometimes years after they formally hand in their resignations, particularly in areas of conflict or in delicate positions. They often stay until a successor is appointed. Instead, the Vatican statement announcing the resignation of the Archbishop said that an auxiliary bishop of the Diocese of Pinsk in western Belarus would act as apostolic administrator until a new archbishop is appointed in Minsk. Kudryavtsev angered Lukashenko by defending the rights of anti-government protesters who began calling for the president's resignation soon after a disputed election on August 9th. The archbishop was denied entry into Belarus the same month on his return from a ceremony in neighboring Poland.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous Reuters staff working like worker bees, even in 2021, bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Several hundred French police on Saturday shut down an illegal rave party in northwestern France that had been underway since New Year's Eve in defiance of a curfew and coronavirus restrictions on large gatherings. About 2,500 revelers from across France and abroad attended the rave in a disused warehouse in Luron near Rennes, and clashed with police soon after the party kicked off, injuring several officers and damaging police cars. The clashes prompted police to wait for reinforcements to be deployed before moving in to put an end to the party. About 800 of the revelers were sanctioned for attending an illegal party, breaking curfew, and not wearing masks, and the rest were mostly issued notices for using illegal drugs. Prosecutors in Rennes have opened a probe into the illegal organization of a musical event and violence against persons of authority. With the highest number of COVID-19 cases in Western Europe, France is stepping up coronavirus restrictions. In neighboring Spain, police broke up a smaller warehouse rave near Barcelona that also had been going on for more than 40 hours with 200 revelers. Well, that's wrong, okay? You can trip hop at home, all right? You don't need to do it maskless with a bunch of other people, please. Okay, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.